Will we see Batman in this villain origin story?
What alliances are made between the various gangs?
Who will win the Gotham power struggle between Oz and Sophia?
And how far will Oz go to get what he wants?
Red and Red Real Reviews dives into the seedy crime world of the Max DC origin story, The Penguin.
Ahoy, ladies! I didn't see you there. Would you guys like to set sail on this ocean of flavor?
Randall, look at eye contact. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow.
Been staring at this board for days.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Act. Bears eat beets.
My brain is on fire. I'm dying.
I am the one who knocks.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
It's hard to believe we're even the same species.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh my god. The microchip has been compromised.
Dracarys.
Red and Red Real Reviews, here we go again, episode 9 of season 2. And this one, Urge Rejoice, and we are both rocking some that swagger.
I guess mine is more like Batgirl, because it's pink, but...
Hey, Batgirl's in the lore. Batgirl's in the lore.
It is. It was that canceled movie that they was it Warner Brothers they actually filmed the whole thing and didn't release it. Did you hear about that a few years ago?
Yeah, maybe that's why maybe that's why it's kind of out of the lexicon. I still think of the blonde, chestily gifted cartoon from the early '90s.
Yeah, and then they had that show on like the CW that ran for a season or two with Ruby Rose. It was terrible, so terrible.
Oh yes, DC has a long line of terrible comic characters to screen.
Yeah, DC is struggling but I think that this is a win for them for sure. This show.
I do too, and the thing with the Penguin is it's a limited series. So we knew, I don't necessarily want to use the word abrupt, but we may, I think we kind of, the audience should figure that there might be either cliffhangers or some unresolved things at the end. But going into it, just out of the nature of how an origin story goes and the story of the character we kind of already have in our brains from years and years past. But going in, did you kind of think we're going to see any familiar faces? Was Batman going to make an appearance?
I didn't necessarily know if we were going to see Batman, but obviously this is taking place in like the land of Batman, which is Gotham. So I obviously I think it was the first couple minutes, they mentioned the Riddler, they mentioned the Falcons, the Maronis. So it's a lot of mentions of Gotham things and Batman lore. And I was just kind of wondering how much of this representation of the Penguin is going to match up with like what we've seen in film in the past with the Penguin, specifically Tim Burton's version of Batman in like the late 80s, early 90s.
That lull of when Batman started on screen, it was super dark, and then it got hokey and corny, and then it got dark again with the whole Christopher Nolan era.
Yeah, so it was a different kind of dark for Christopher Nolan, and like not that this wasn't dark either, but I found that I'm in my mind I have the Danny DeVito Penguin in my mind, right? So I'm thinking like he had like needle teeth. Like I remember he would bite people and like eat people's like faces off or something. I don't remember, but he was very violent and very scary. Like obviously it was Danny DeVito, so he was a lot shorter. Obviously he's not an attractive guy, like let's be honest. But I felt like
Reynolds.
Yeah, so I felt like this was just less like gory, less scary. They just made him look like a gangster. You know what I mean? He's got like the like pockmarked skin. He's got the not like a brace, but the thing on his foot. He's got like a bum foot, so he waddles. So yes, he's disabled and he's not attractive, but he's not like scary and gory like Danny DeVito's Penguin was.
He kind of the in between of the cartoon Penguin from the original animated series and the Danny DeVito Penguin, which was very Tim Burtonized. Um,
Yeah.
so it was kind of like in the middle. They didn't want to go all the way. They didn't want to give like a pointy nose or a top hat or anything, but they
Yeah.
didn't. They still kind of kept him more the New York gangster vibe.
Yeah, and did you notice too in the logo where it says the penguin, like at the beginning of each episode, in I think it's the G, there's like I think it's meant to be his nose, right? Like that.
Was there?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Oh, excuse me, miss. I don't skip intros. Pulling out a nugget from
Well,
the
at least it
animation.
wasn't really an intro. It was like a 2 second thing where they just flashed the name of the thing on the screen. Like there wasn't like a song. So there was nothing to fast forward. So I did notice that. I'm like, oh, I see what they're trying to do. Like I think the G is supposed to be like his profile, like his nose.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm not that artistically observant. um, but as far as the other cases, yeah, the Riddler got mentioned right away, and almost maybe I already like subconsciously was expecting this to only be the Penguin, so I didn't expect it to be like have other villains in it. But I don't know if they were kind of like throwing the carrot out there to like tease the audience that there were going to be multiple villains like we're used to in the old Batman films. But
Mm,
after the whole that whole flood thing, which was kind of off camera over the Riddler, they kind of never
right.
mentioned them again.
Yeah, they didn't. And they didn't mention any other villains. Well, when there's a flashback to Sophia in Arkham, I was looking it up, and Magpie, who is the girl in Arkham that she was hanging out with, is a Batman villain.
Yeah, I recognize the name, but my comic brain isn't well enough to have been associating that to what Batman villain she was. But I did recognize the name.
It must be like one of those older, like uh early, like maybe in the 60s or 70s or 80s, like one of those villains just for the comic books that like we haven't seen a representation of in film at all. But like
Yeah.
when she was talking and she had like the squeaky voice, which I could not stand, by the way. I was kind of thinking, I'm like, wait, is she in Arkham with Harley Quinn, or like
Oh,
who
yeah.
who is this? So then she's like, my name is Maggie and blah blah blah. Like, or she's like, someone calls me Magpie. And that I was thinking, so I Googled it, and I'm like, sure enough, Magpie is a known Batman villain.
Yeah. And I feel like if they were to do something else, maybe Harley would work her way back into it. But we'll
Yeah.
get to foreshadowing later. I
Yeah.
thought that this was mostly a fresh face series, and
Mm.
Batman fans are used to origin stories from the Gotham TV series, but there wasn't any mention to Jim Gordon, so this obviously must take place before that.
I kept waiting for, there was that really old cop with like the weird voice.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah,
kept
yeah, yeah.
waiting for someone to reference like Gordon or something, but no one did. So I was kind of listening. I had my ears perked up listening for if any of these policemen were Gordon.
Yeah. 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 And he's always there. So I kind of like had in the back of my mind too, like, where is he? Where is he? There was like not really a lot of police engagement in this one.
Yeah.
But there was one familiar name because the Falcons are a very prominent name in Batman comic lore. So that was, if there was anything that was a throwback to DC Legends, it was probably the Falcone name and establishing
And
that.
in the Chris Nolan films, I believe it's Eric Roberts. I don't know if he plays a Falcone or Maroni. But yeah, there's a reference to that like gangster war in the Chris Nolan films.
Yeah, and they certainly got that arc going fast with that meeting with Oz and Alberto.
Yeah.
So there is, of course, an artistry in cinema, and we got to address this right away because it's the it's kind of the shell shock when you start watching the show. Colin
Mm,
Farrell is completely transformed in this as Oswald Cobb. They made him fat. They changed his voice to, well, like he changed his voice to this,
yeah.
that New York mobster kind of accent. And I did see your notebook for the most part. It was pretty true. There wasn't much of a drop there. They roughed up his skin a little bit. I don't want to say like
Oh yeah.
acne scars or anything like that. So he was completely immersed as the Penguin.
Mm. Yeah, and I couldn't believe how real he had that was all prosthetic, like everything. I think like his like mouth, his nose, like nothing was his. It was all prosthetics. But what was amazing, like I think they should win awards for this because normally, in movies and TV when someone is playing a role with that, heavy prosthetics on, like it has a certain look, right? It doesn't look
Hmm.
very authentic, but he didn't look like he was fake. He looked like a real person. It's just he didn't look anything like Colin Farrell. Like normally with prosthetics, you see people's eyes and then you're like, okay, that's totally Colin Farrell or whatever. But even in his eyes, you didn't see Colin Farrell at all, which was
No, yeah,
amazing.
you're right. And because he does have these very, very big, distinctive eyes, but even that was not. Yeah, even that was like I don't know. Did they like put some weights on his eyelids to bring him down a little bit? I don't know.
Or I'm wondering too if they I don't know if they did something to his teeth either because he has very distinct like people are defined by both their eyes and their teeth, right? People have very distinctive of both. So Colin Farrell actually like he doesn't have perfect teeth. He kind of has like a snaggle tooth, I believe. So uh, it didn't look like it was his teeth. So I almost wonder if he had like a fake set of teeth in.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we know that a lot of times for roles, actors put in the fake contacts to change their color. And
Mm.
obviously dentures are a thing, so I'm sure that that could have been a factor as well. Like there was, it just adds to the list of like there wasn't one thing they left on his body that was Colin Farrell.
Right. No identifying characteristic left. Like the only thing that reminded me that brought me back to like, oh yeah, this is Colin Farrell is his voice occasionally, where obviously you can tell that he's putting on a gruff voice, but the fact that he's Irish in real life, and then I have seen him in roles where he does an American accent. So yeah, he's putting on this almost like retro New York accent and he's like making it his voice a little more like gravelly and gruff. So but that was the only like remnant I saw of Colin Farrell was occasionally in that voice.
And he has, and when you listen to him like in interviews and such, he has a very heavy Irish accent.
He
So,
does.
and
He
it's
does.
not, it's almost never prevalent in his work. So, like he covers his accent a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think he does an American accent well normally. You would never know that he's Irish when he's in these roles. So, I mean, yeah, that was pretty uh, pretty legendary the fact that he's putting on this accent. He looks completely different. Just everything about him is just immersed in this role of Oz.
Yeah. And the other immersive role in this one, I gain a lot of respect for Cristin Milioti as an actress in this
Mm,
one because I, d- d- I don't necessarily have like a long list of pieces that she's done. And like the first thing I always think of is she played the mother of Ted's children, How I Met Your Mother, which was
right.
all the way at the end of the series. And the way that series ended, her role kind of wound up being a little insignificant. But the certainly the way the series ended, but even the way it started, I'm like, wow, she could sure be a cutthroat biatch.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen her in two things. I mean, I did know that she was the mother in How I Met Your Mother, but she it seems like she has a habit of playing like kind of awkward, like nice, like
Mhm.
a character that you is sort of beloved that you feel like bad for or that you love just because she's so sweet. Like she was in a series called Modern Love, where I think she finds out that she's pregnant and the father doesn't want to be involved. So she ends up like raising this baby by herself in like New York City. So that was really, she had a little bit of a serious role in that. But and then she was in this rom-com with Andy Samberg that aired on Hulu, like kind of like a time traveling thing. It was actually cute. It was funny. That was in like 2020 or 2021. And so yeah, she's kind of, and I don't want to say typecast, but it seems like the few roles she has are sort of like a little bit of comedy. Like she's a nice person, she's a nice girl. So this was a definite turn as a highly dramatic, like insane role that she had to play, and she was very, very good. So I hope that she gets recognized for this role. B, I hope that she gets taken seriously in Hollywood, that she gets more serious roles stemming from this role, because I think she has the chops for it. I really do.
Yeah, we'll add her to the list of the roles we've covered. The roles we covered on Anasawa from Shogun. There was it someone from Lessons in Chemistry that you were really impressed with? Was that it?
I feel like there's been a lot of people we've talked about that are like, you know what, we could see them going far, or like, please give them a chance, casting directors, because they could knock it out of the park.
Yeah, it makes sense when you have you labeled her as the typecast of awkward, because she has an awkward prettiness to her, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like she kind of like fills that kind of geeky dweeby but still cute girl next door kind of thing.
Right. And she's not like, she's very pretty, like, don't get me wrong, but she's not perfect as far as like Hollywood goes. Like she does, like, she has imperfect teeth. And I was laughing because whenever she would speak, you know, she's speaking also in that, it's not even like a current New York accent. It's almost like a little bit of a retro, like what I imagine to be like what people would speak like in the 1930s or 40s or something. And every time she was speaking, I felt like all I could think of, I would like close my eyes and I would think of Mariah Carey, like her speaking voice, because Mariah Carey is from New York.
I
Or
don't
from
want
like,
a lot for. Sorry, we're a little too early for
yeah,
that.
or she's from Long Island or Staten Island, or I don't know if it's New York City, but she's got a little bit of like a, I don't want to do it because I'm going to sound terrible, but like I don't even
Let your
know,
freak
but
flag fly. Come on.
she'd be like, I don't want to talk to you. Like a little bit of a, like a
Walk to you.
talk to you.
Like
Like a
a
little
Leah
bit of
Remini.
a, yeah, kind of like a sassy. And all I could think of was Mariah Carey, like a little bit of that sassy little like street smart accent, you know, like
Yeah. Um. Oh shoot. Why can't I think of her name? From My Cousin Vinny. Marissa Tomei.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sort of like that.
Yeah. So the arc of Sophia Falcone, because she goes from this like innocent, losing her innocence, getting set up for the death of her mother, going into Arkham, going nutso, and she comes out. She's strictly business. She just wants to kind of be politically correct with the family, get back in, work her way up, and then we see like what she dealt with inside of the asylum, which was just nuts though, with that tall, stretchy bird woman kind of thing.
Oh,
And
yeah, it was crazy.
yeah, and then we see that totally come back around to this vicious character when she kidnaps Ma Cobb and uses her as basically leverage to get her to hate her son, Cobb, Oz, obviously.
Yeah, her character was like very complex because she's, you know, she's got the revenge arc because she's upset with her family for doing that to her and throwing her in Arkham. Then she's got it's all layers, you know, she's got the fact that her father killed all these women. the fact that she was the one who found her mother hanging, and just everything she dealt with in Arkham. She's got so much baggage, and like I feel for her. And like you can see in the scene where she goes to, Julian comes to her and says, listen, Gia said she wants to talk to the police, so like you need to talk to her and shut this down.
Yeah.
So she's not going to be a problem. So she goes to like the children's home and she speaks with Gia, and like you could just tell that she is human. She's just a very complex character that's had a hard and a crazy life and has seen a lot of things, and it's affected her, but she feels for this child, and she says, don't let, your family were bad people, and you don't deserve that. You deserve something that's good. So you deserve to belong to a family that will love you and will give you what you deserve, basically. And so she's very human in that moment. And in the end, where she's trying desperately to make Oz be truthful. Like she's like, own up to what you did. And he won't. And she's kind of like shocked by that. The fact that, yes, she knew he was a monster, but she just didn't know that he was that much of a monster.
No, yeah, and like you said, the human moment, like that humanizing relationship with Gia, and then to go right back to this malicious character.
Yeah, she's just in and out of, like, I don't want to say consciousness, but because of what she's dealt with, I think if anyone were thrown into a place like Arkham for 10 years, I mean, it's not 6 months, it's not a year, it's 10 years. So I can imagine your psyche would be super damaged from something like that. But after all she's been through, like, yes, she has her issues, but she's still not as bad as Oz at the end of the day.
Yeah. On the topic of Oz, an underlying note to this whole series is, to me, a tale as old as time, a boy and his mother. This took an interesting turn to me because it gives you the impression he has this soft side. He's just trying to be loyal. He's trying to take care of his mother. Who couldn't get behind that? But as we know, there's a little bit of a dark twist to it.
A little bit of a dark twist. Wow.
This is a scotch.
Just a wee bit. Yeah. You know what I saw at the core of this issue, and I think this is sort of a problem in our society today, is we have these kids with issues. They grow up to be adults with issues. And a big reason for that is having a single parent. And like, I'm not saying anyone with a single mom is going to be like a bad egg. That's not what it is. But in this circumstance, there are a couple references to like, oh, you're just like your father in that regard, or blah, blah, blah. But they don't show the father. They don't really like talk about the father. Like, why isn't he there? Like what happened? Like, how was he when he was there? Like, what was his character like? We don't really know. So there's very little mention of the father. The only thing that is mentioned is Rex. When he comes to see Francis, he mentions that that's how he acquires guys to work for him, is guys who don't have fathers. So think about that. The guys who don't have fathers are becoming gangsters. Because you have that void in your life of, you don't really know how to act. You don't know how to be a man, right? The right way to be a man, rather.
It's and as far as society is concerned, it's not necessarily always the father, but if the father's not there, because that's the easy option, but if the father's not there needs to be some strong male role model. And otherwise, like you said, it does create that void for another figure to come in and fill it with possible malicious ambitions.
Right. And think of how, because his father wasn't around, that scene where him and his brothers are on the street and his brother, gives him money or talks to Rex. And Oz is like, oh, it's nice to see you, Rex. Or he's like schmoozing with him. And the brother's like, don't talk to him. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And that, like, think of it. The only man that he looks up to is a gangster in his neighborhood.
Yeah, instead of his older brother, who is effectively the man of the house because he's the oldest brother, and he doesn't even
Right.
recognize him as that.
Mm-hmm.
I did find it interesting because Rex, when Ma Cobb is relying on Rex for guidance there, he says, like, well, normally we take boys like that who don't have fathers, but he's got
Mm-hmm.
you. So I
Yeah.
almost kind of think like maybe Rex was misguided here, thinking that Ma Cobb was something she wasn't.
Yeah, that line was kind of confusing to me because I was kind of thinking the same thing. I'm like he's saying that that's how he finds guys to work for him. But yet he's uh, he's kind of negating that by saying that, oh, well, he's not like that though. But then she's like, no, he's a monster. He's seriously a monster.
Yeah,
So that was kind of odd.
everyone knows it except Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Like even Ma Cobb at some point knows it. Like I think maybe she's in denial for a good chunk of the series, but she knows
Mm-hmm.
it deep down inside until she gets to the point where she can't deny it anymore. But
Yeah.
Oz is the only one that does not see himself like that, which I guess is a tried and true villain arc.
Yeah, for sure.
So by the end of it, I also thought that Oz did all of this out of his whole care for his mother um was out of his own selfishness. I, I don't whether it was the jealousy of his brothers, because Makab implies after the hostage situation that she had enough love for all of them, and Oz
Mm-hmm.
didn't seem to recognize that. So, like, I don't know whether Oz was just slighted because of his disability. He took that as he had to find something to fill his need for power. Did he resent Jack as being the oldest, the planner, little Benny's protector? I don't like I feel like I lose a lot of the sympathy for Oz when I realize all of this and all of his care was just masquerading his jealousy and his selfishness.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I went through the whole show, just in the end I was just confused about what is it that he actually is aiming for? Like, what is his goal? What does he actually want? Like, I'm not sure that I know.
Hmm.
It seemed like it was, I want these things for my mom. I want to like be somebody of importance. I want to have all these things, all these material things. I want to have the penthouse apartment with the view. Um, but I don't know. I I don't think it's not necessarily about that. It seems, with what happened to Vic. I'm confused. You know what I mean?
And yeah, the Vic thing threw me for a loop.
Right?
I thought he was that kid. This is a kid that had absolutely no background in crime, and he grew with Oz and became a very loyal sidekick. So for that moment at the end, I'm just like, what the ever living f?
You know what was weird? It was like he finally he had the one person who was willing to stand by him, right?
Hmm.
And it's like,
He couldn't accept it.
yeah,
Dude,
it's either he doesn't feel like he deserves it, which I don't think that's the case. I think it's more like he just can't take, like, because he's so like poisoned, he can't take anyone being so nice to him and caring for him.
yeah, in a genuine way, like genuine loyalty seems so foreign.
Like, he would rather deal with people who are like that he has these surface level deals and alliances with. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't want friendship or he doesn't want legitimate support.
I mean, I guess there's a certain disconnect that you would need to lead a crime ring like that. And obviously throughout the entire series, he's got high ambitions to lead this entire crime circuit and take over all the other territories. So I mean, maybe that is it. Maybe he needs to disconnect the logical and the business side of the of all the drug dealings and the gangs from any kind of real, genuine emotional support, loyalty, whatever the case may be.
Right. It's just it's almost like he wants to operate with tunnel vision to like within this ruthlessness to be like, you know what, I don't want any attachments to people. I don't want any legitimate friendships with people. Like I'm just doing what I have to do and I don't care who I have to wreck to get there. Literally.
Yeah. Well, that was a little bit of a heavy topic. So let's bring the tone down a bit and have some fun. There were some familiar faces in this series.
Oh yeah.
The first one I noticed was, of course, Michael Kelly, which I always like to see because of when I first saw him in House of Cards. More recently, he's been in Lioness, which we will cover the second season towards the end of the year. And his role of Johnny Vitti. This is such the typical Michael Kelly role. Cold, unemotional. He's driven by objective. He executes. The only break and weakness I saw from his characters when Sophia had him in the basement.
Yeah. I was shocked when she just took him out and she didn't keep him around. Like I could see her wanting to manipulate him and everything, but yeah, he was desperate in that basement and we really like he wasn't such a high and mighty what do they call him? Like the second in command or whatever to the boss.
I think
underboss.
They did say underboss. I kept thinking like they kept saying captain.
Did they say underboss?
Actually captain, I think I'm mixing it up with Tulsa King. They did say underboss. The word that's always in the back of my head is a don because I've got this like mafia mob thing going on. Watching it.
Maybe they did call him the underboss, but
they did say underboss.
Or yeah, I mean, obviously he was just trying to live, so he did come across as being like pretty desperate in that moment and broken down. But yeah, I'm always like when I see him, you know, because the role that I most associate him with is Doug Stamper from House of Cards. Yeah. So like whenever I see Michael Kelly, I'm like, Doug, it's Doug.
The fixer. The fixer of Frank Underwood's seedy doings.
Yeah, so like it kind of plays into like his look, I guess. If he would be typecast for anything, it would probably be like mob movies, you know.
Yeah. And I think that association is probably like you always remember your first kind of deal because that's the first time at least to me, he was on like a national stage of, you know, a lot of visibility. So
like I'm always an actor.
Yeah, I'm always gonna say Doug Stamper whenever I see him before I say Michael Kelly.
Oh yeah, and I remember him from what's that show with John what's the guy from The Office, John Krasinski. Yeah, I want to say Krakowski. I'm mixing up like Jane Krakowski, whatever her name is.
Was he in Jack Ryan?
Jack Ryan, thank you. Yes, he was in Jack Ryan.
Was he? Oh.
Yes.
He is talk about typecast.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like
his government.
Right. His role in Jack Ryan was kind of similar to like Lioness. You know, so yeah, it's either mafia government for him. He just has that look. Shady guy character from the government or mafia.
Well, there's a lot of them. Another one to me, and this one like takes me back to my childhood because Clancy Brown, he's not someone I like recognize his face a lot. He played Salvatore Maroni in this, and like I feel like I recently rewatched Highlander, and that's a kind of an older movie. That's like the late '80s, early '90s. So I didn't recognize his face because Kurgan in Highlander, he's this big berserker, shaved bald head, no beard. He's got pasty like ghost skin. but I knew his voice. I'm like, who is? I know who that is. So I looked up and Clancy Brown. I'm like, Clancy Brown. I'm like scrubbing through his timeline, and I'm like, who is this? Where do I know him from? I know him because he was an animated voice in two of my favorite cartoons growing up, Gargoyles and Mighty Ducks the animated series.
Oh,
Yeah, well, that's where I
yeah.
know Clancy Brown from. Salvatore, and then there's Salvatore in there.
Mine was the reverse. I didn't recognize his voice, but he looked familiar to me, and I couldn't I was like, who is this actor? I couldn't figure it out. But he's had a super long career, so like I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know what I know him from. Nothing in particular. I think he was in one of the Avengers movies or something. I don't even remember who he played, but I think I saw that in like his recent filmography.
Oh, yeah, he could. He has that
I
look.
don't know if it was Endgame. Yeah, I don't know who he played, but I was just like, I recognize this actor. And I could not figure it out. And that was the same thing for Vic.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing in his background stood out to me, but I was like, this kid looks so damn familiar. And one of those, one of those people, maybe he's got one of those faces. I don't know.
He does have a distinctive face, but also like I find it so funny because what he looks like now to me is like his typical look, like long hair, big white beard. I associate him to one of the cartoons he voiced as like the same character. So I
Oh,
see him as like this type of appearance, and it's like you look like the cartoon. You're just a caricature of yourself
I
with
felt like I would I when I was trying to figure out who, Sal Maroni was, I kind of put him in the same character. I'm like, okay, um he's not what's his name? Ron Perlman or like Jeff Bridges or like one of those guys. Like
yeah
I feel like
yeah
he's in the same category of actors, like just been working a long time, but you might not
yeah.
necessarily know his name outright.
Yeah, like once in a blue moon they have a prominent role, but 85, 90% of the roles are supportive and kind of on the side. Lesser
Right.
roles.
Or like the actress who played Frances, Oz's mom, Deidre O'Connor. So that's another thing. It's like I'm like, okay, who is this actress? And then I looked her up and she's been in a lot. I guess the most recent thing that we've seen her in is Outer Range. She was Patricia Tillerson.
I don't even remember Wayne Tillerson's wife in that.
Remember she's the one that's really close to the one son and she like flies in and she's wearing like leopard print and she's like kind of tacky and she's just like, "Oh, let me comfort you." And like,
Oh,
she's very close with the one son. That's her. And like I was like, "Oh, okay." So that's what we've seen her in recently, but she's been in a lot across over the years.
that was a blip that was a blip on the radar.
I know. I'm kind of sad about Outer Range being canceled too, but
I am too. It was on such a good momentum track just and they're just like, ah, no, we're good.
I know. So sad.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get not to get too off topic, uh, Gotham is a very crime-riddled city. I mean, it's evident in this show. Anyone who
Mm.
knows the Batman, the Batman legacy knows that. So I guess to pseudo wrap up, uh, how do you think the show did setting the stage for this intertangled web of kind of bad people in the seedy depths of this city?
I mean, like obviously I don't know anything about drugs or drug wars of reality or anything, but I mean, I think they did a good job with
That's Breaking
the whole bliss thing and getting the drug on the market and then just kind of showing that like people will do anything to screw you over, like even if
Bad.
you have alliances, even if you have deals, like that really doesn't mean anything. Like these people will do anything for selfish gain, and furthermore when it's in the comics or the prior movies, like in other with other directors and other, but just in the Batman universe, like we know that there's a long-standing war between the Falcons and Maronis, and like it's one of those things. It's like Israel and Palestine. It's like it's a a war as old as time. Is just this
Yeah,
legendary, like never ending, like crime war of families, or it's like the Montagues and Capulets, like they just freaking hate each other. It's one of those things where, or you could compare it to the mob wars of like the 20th century, like all the Gottis and all that, those crime families.
I have another real world comparison, but first I want to note that also I noticed that even as loyalty is so important in these crime families, it's only important until someone thinks they can be the guy. And just the way Oz played this
Mm,
relationship with Zhao and Link, like he knew Link wanted to rise to the top. He
yeah.
knew Sophia had Zhao in her back pocket. So he kind of used that relationship
Mm-hmm.
to put himself out as bait, and
Mm-hmm.
then Link and his goons would not only take out Zhao and his loyal thugs so that Link could rise to the top, but also um, cripple Sophia's influence in that situation for Oz to have his own kind of vengeance of sorts and throw her back in Arkham.
Right. And it's not even just about being like a crime boss. It's about being in tune with other people, like what their hopes and dreams are, because that's how you manipulate them. And that's what he used. Like he knew that Link was wanted something more, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So he used that to his advantage. And that's what being a crime boss is all about,
Yeah,
leveraging that stuff.
and the Falcons seem to have the upper hand when the series gets going on all kind
Mm-hmm.
of the territories that fall underneath them. And I almost kind of turn this on a like you likened the warring parties to Israel and Palestine. I'm almost kind of liking this Falcone thing to um the Iraq War, because you
Mm,
could have a situation where the Falcons are like, it's almost like the enemy of the enemy is my friend situation,
mm-hmm.
and maybe the juice is not worth the squeeze with taking them out, because and they've been taken out because it started off Oz takes out Alberto, and
Yeah.
then we have Sophia going ape shit and gassing the whole family, so the Falcons are
Yeah.
wiped out. But maybe this Falcone establishment was what kind of kept the city relatively stable and kind of creates the environment for Batman to rise to prominence, because without the Falcons, we may see, Oz's rise to become the Penguin that we know him as. The Riddler, which was just like an off-camera thing, maybe
Mm,
come up. Maybe the Joker comes out, Catwoman, Scarecrow. Name your laundry list of Batman villains. The
mm.
Falcons were maybe like keeping a lid on all these psychos from the depths of the underworld, basically, from rising up and causing chaos in the city.
Yeah. I mean, and then, I mean, you mentioned the thing about Sophia. So it's like, I mean, it's not uncommon. I was into organized crime and I've read a lot of books about Whitey Bulger and Gotti and all these guys. And um, they will turn on their own, they will kill their own. We saw literally Sophia kill her entire family. So
Yeah.
it's like when you get to the heart of it, like these people are not opposed to just offing their whole family. And
Mhm.
that's just shows that just sets the stage for the like what the inner workings of these people's brains are. Like that's
Yeah.
where they will go, and they have no problem going there.
Yeah, like the emphasis is on power, but so much so that there's no like self-awareness of the kind of the greater ecosystem of the where they operate.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I did mention Catwoman before, and this is
Mm,
sets up what's ahead for this series, I think, because one of the last scenes in Arkham with Sophia is Julian Rausch comes in and brings Sophia a note. So this is a letter from your half sister, Selena Kyle. Anyone knows Batman knows Selena Kyle is
mm-hmm,
Catwoman, and I
mm-hmm.
feel like I heard I feel like I heard or saw somewhere online that that a Catwoman series was coming next.
Oh,
So
really?
I'm kind of, I mean, I don't know, maybe I made it up, maybe I'm psycho, but I now I'm almost feeling like these series are going to be more like anthologies for the origin story, and then at the end of each one, maybe they set up the origin story of the next villain.
Well, I mean, I think Marvel kind of did that with that Agents of Shield show, right? Didn't that show kind of fall in between the movies that they put out? So I could see them doing that because they did release the first Batman movie. They have two more that are coming out, which Colin Farrell said, "Yeah, I'm signed on to all three." So he already did the first. He had a couple scenes in the first one. And then he says something about he thinks he has like 5 to 6 scenes in the second one. So we know for sure he's going to be in the next two movies. Whether they decide to continue the story separately within this show to do another season, I'm not totally sure about. Like what I read is that Colin Farrell said he would be open to doing that, but kind of only if there's a compelling story to be told that he thinks can be told. I also read that he's really not a fan of all the prosthetics and all the process it takes to to be the Penguin, which I don't even know how many hours it takes. I'm sure it takes like 4 to 5 hours or something crazy.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how anyone could enjoy that level of makeup.
Yeah. So I think for him, like there has to be a compelling story. It has to be like good writing. There has to be a good reason to do a second season. So I'm not sure if they're gonna come up with something for that in between the movies or in addition to the movies too, that he'll make an appearance in.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, the big question is, would you be interested in watching the continuation of this, or would you just kind of play it by ear? And if it's like my theory prophesizes, like just kind of pay attention to it if it's a villain that catches your fancy.
I mean, I would definitely watch it. I'm into Batman stuff, so this gives me a little bit more confidence in what DC can do because I feel like they've made kind of all the wrong moves with their, like Wonder Woman, like they've just made all Aquaman, that's DC, right? Yeah, it's just they don't have the best track record as far as making movies that do justice to their comics and their stories. And so this was the first one. Well, I mean, I guess I would say Shazam a little bit to me was like getting more in the direction of like where I think DC should go because I love Zachary Levi. But yeah, I just hope that DC continues on this path. Like if we can tell them like, it's like playing hot and cold, like you're getting hotter. Like this is what we want to see you do. Please do more of this. Like this is good. This is good stuff.
We're a lot of good stuff, and you think we're hot and you want to stay on the path with us, enjoy our show and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, if those are your platforms of choosing, which you can also listen to us on iHeartRadio as well. But if you enjoy the visuals of the fire ginger nest, stay on YouTube and Rumble for that. Follow her on Instagram at Binge the Ginge, that is dots between the words, and on TikTok at Binge the Ginge, one word, and myself, Nutmeg2 Palmetto, that is the number 2. Give us both follows. And next up, we are going to go live again for the second episode of The Return of Yellowstone. Make sure you join us after the episode concludes for our live reaction, rapid reaction sort of breakdown. And being that we just wrapped up the second half of Outer Banks, we are repeating that process with the remainder of season 6 of Cobra Kai, also on Netflix. And I think, if memory serves correctly, this is the end of Cobra Kai, so this is the series.
It is. Yep.
Until those very next real reviews, Red and Red are signing out.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What?
Do what?
No. Try not. Do. Or do not.
Because I don't want no scrubs.
Let the dogs out, you know, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Who brought this guy along?
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love for you. None but love for you. Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Peace! Smile, you son of a...
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did it.
Not funny anymore.
TLC references. Still nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.